People of Reddit, what was the scariest paranormal experience you have ever had in your life? There's a place called Dead End Alley near where I live. It has a dark history. When we reached 10 years old, my cousin and I were allowed to play on the street just outside my auntie's house. There was a busy lane which ran down beside the side of the houses where all the kids used to run up and down, kick a football around, rode their bikes, and generally messed around. I liked it because I had a long walkway to practice pushing my wheelchair without the danger of the main road, and my cousin, our friends, and I spent hours of fun running and wheeling up and down that lane. There was a funny little dead-end alley just leading off the lane, which always had a weird vibe around it. There was only one house at the end of the dead-end alley, as all the kids used to call it. The house was different from all the other houses around it. The others were bright, colorful, and cheerful, full of life, with neighbors talking over the fences with one another, and always ready to tell us kids off, tongue-in-cheek, for making too much row, a typical slang term for noise in West London. The house down Dead End Alley was always dark. Even on a sweltering hot summer's day, it always seemed to have a gloom hanging over it like a dark, ominous cloud. Obviously, we being merely 10 years old, were banned by my mama and aunt from going anywhere near the alley, let alone the empty, abandoned house. Although my older cousin and his mates, who were 13, hung around Dead End Alley from time to time with the sole purpose of frightening his little sister and me with horror stories of the house and its imaginary monstrous inhabitants. Having heard rumors about the dark history of the house, although not knowing anything concrete, the house had the dubious reputation as a haunted house. One typical summer's day, my cousin and I were playing in the lane with our friends. We kept hearing a baby crying. Now, being in the middle of a council estate, it is not uncommon to hear a baby cry, so we paid no attention. However, as the afternoon wore on, the baby's cry became louder and constant, almost deliberate. That got our attention, and we all decided to investigate the noise, so we stopped playing and began to look around. To our horror, after searching for the route of the noise, we realized that the baby's cries were originating from the front garden of the Dead End Alley house. One of our friends, who was slightly older, said he would go nearer to have a look. We were all concerned by now, as it seemed obvious to all present that it was a real baby who was in distress, but everyone present also pleaded with him not to do it. But he was, and still is, a very principled, moral person, and his conscience overcame him. We waited for 10 minutes until he came back. He looked awful. His face was white as a sheet, and he looked physically shaken. He told us that he went into the garden, but there was no sign of a baby anywhere. His best mate asked him if he saw anything else, and just nodded and said, "I don't want to talk about it." Nobody forced the issue. In fact, I think everyone was secretly relieved about it. We left very quickly and returned to the safety of home. Years after, my cousin and I were talking to her mom, and she began to tell us about the history of the local area. The subject of the Dead End Alley house came up. We were horrified by what my auntie told us. It still gives me chills talking about it now. In the 1940s, the area where their family lived was way rougher than it was present day. Lots of domestic violence, gangs, prostitution, and unwed mothers. Also a high pregnancy rate, which is to be expected in some ways, what with the war. Along with it came a fair percentage of unwanted babies. It turns out that the house in Dead End Alley was a baby farm, where women took their babies that they couldn't look after or didn't want to women or couples, and for a fee they would take these abandoned infants in and find good homes for them. It was said by the locals that the couple running the baby farm was quite an unsavory pair, and there were rumors at the time of coercion and intimidation of young unwed mothers to give the awful couple their babies, and neglect and abuse of their young charges. Then the scandal was uncovered in the 1950s. My auntie didn't know the full facts. The remains of several infant bodies were found in the front garden in a shed where the husband kept his gardening tools. The couple were obviously charged with murder, and because of the number of remains discovered, they were put away for a long time. We don't really know what the truth is of what happened that hot summer day long ago, but my cousin and I have our theories. My cousin still lives in the same house with her own family and my auntie, and every time my husband and I visit them, I still get the chills when passing by Dead End Alley. And our friend who went to look for the distressed baby, who my cousin and I are still friends with, has never revealed what he saw in the garden of the Dead End Alley house.